The rain hit the pavement in sharp bursts as Daniel Mercer stood outside the grand glass doors of his office tower, gripping a cream-colored envelope so tightly the paper bent under his fingers. He had just stepped out of a meeting worth millions. Yet the only thing he could see was the name printed in elegant gold letters. Olivia Hartwell. For a moment, Daniel didn't move. Cars rushed by. The doorman glanced at him twice. Then Daniel opened the envelope. Inside was a wedding invitation. Olivia Hartwell and Christopher Vaughn request the honor of your presence. His jaw tightened. Christopher Vaughn. Tech billionaire. Media darling. Net worth that made headlines every month. And beneath the invitation was a handwritten note. Hope you can make it. No hard feelings. Daniel laughed once. A dry, humorless sound. 6 months ago Olivia had walked into his office and destroyed his life in less than 10 minutes. 6 months ago she had returned the engagement ring and told him calmly that she had met someone else. Someone with bigger opportunities. Someone with a future too big to ignore. Someone richer. The newspapers had loved it. Millionaire hotel owner dumped weeks before wedding. Social media had been worse. People he had never met had mocked him. Speculated. Turned his heartbreak into entertainment. For months Daniel had avoided parties, cameras, even friends. And now Olivia had the nerve to invite him to watch her marry the man she left him for. Daniel folded the note slowly. The rain dripped from the edge of the building roof. Behind him a quiet voice said, "You look like someone just declared war on you." Daniel turned. His business partner and closest friend, Sophie Grant, stood beside him holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to him. "What happened?" she asked. Daniel gave her the invitation. She read it. Her eyebrows climbed higher and higher. "Oh wow," she muttered. "She really did that." Daniel stared across the street. "She wants me there," he said quietly. "She wants me to see it." Sophie studied his face. "And you're thinking about going?" Daniel didn't answer. A car horn blared nearby. Finally Sophie folded the invitation and handed it back. "If you go," she said slowly, "you can't go alone." Daniel frowned. "Of course I can." "No," Sophie said immediately. "You absolutely cannot." Daniel turned toward her. "Imagine it," Sophie continued. "You walk into that wedding by yourself. Everyone whispers. Everyone pities you." Daniel clenched his jaw. She wasn't wrong. Sophie took a sip of her coffee. "But if you walk in with someone," she added, "someone unexpected." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What are you suggesting?" Sophie's smile was mischievous. "I'm suggesting you bring a date." Daniel almost laughed. "Olivia's wedding is going to be full of models, influencers, billionaires' daughters." "Exactly," Sophie said. "So don't bring one of them." Daniel stared at her. "What?" Sophie leaned closer. "Bring someone no one expects." Daniel looked confused. But then something caught his eye across the street. Near the entrance of a small convenience store, sitting under a worn blue tarp, was a woman he had noticed many times before. She sat on a flattened cardboard box. Beside her was a backpack and a stack of books. Not magazines. Books. Thick novels. She was reading even now despite the rain, holding the pages carefully so they wouldn't get wet. Daniel had seen her almost every day. She never begged. Never bothered anyone. She simply sat there and read. Sophie followed his gaze. "Daniel," she said slowly, "why are you staring at that woman?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead he watched the woman turn a page, completely absorbed in the book. Then an idea began to form in his mind. A ridiculous idea. A dangerous one. But the more he thought about it, the more it made a strange kind of sense. Sophie crossed her arms. "Okay," she said cautiously. "I don't like that look on your face." Daniel suddenly walked toward the street. "Where are you going?" Sophie asked. "Give me a minute," Daniel replied. He crossed through traffic and approached the woman. Up close he noticed things he hadn't before. Her clothes were worn but clean. Her hair was tied back loosely. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent. She noticed his shadow and looked up cautiously. "Yes?" she asked. Daniel hesitated for a moment. Then he spoke. "I have a strange question for you." The woman blinked. "That sounds concerning." Daniel almost smiled. "My name is Daniel Mercer." Recognition flashed across her face. "The hotel guy?" He nodded. "I've seen you around," she admitted. "Then I'll skip introductions," Daniel said. She closed her book carefully. "What do you need?" Daniel exhaled slowly. "Would you consider coming to a wedding with me?" The woman stared at him. Silence stretched between them. Finally she said, "I'm sorry, what?" Daniel crouched slightly so they were eye level. I'm serious, he said. Are you filming some kind of prank video? She asked. No. Because if you are, I'm not. She studied his face carefully. You're serious? Yes. Why? Daniel glanced toward his building where Sophie stood watching in disbelief. Then he looked back at the woman. Because I need someone to pretend to be my girlfriend for one night. The woman burst out laughing. A genuine laugh. Oh wow, she said. This is a new one. Daniel waited patiently. She wiped a tear from her eye. You're a millionaire, she said. Why would you ask a homeless woman to do that? Daniel spoke quietly. Because you look real. The laughter faded from her face. And because the woman getting married is my ex-fiancée. Now the woman looked interested. Daniel continued. She left me for someone richer. Now she invited me to watch her wedding. The woman leaned back slightly. So you want revenge? Daniel shook his head slowly. I want dignity. She considered that. And what exactly would I have to do? Stand beside me, Daniel said. Smile. Talk to people. Pretend we're together. And that's it. That's it. She crossed her arms. And what do I get out of this? Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out a small card. $10,000, he said calmly. Her eyes widened. Hair, makeup, clothes, everything you need for the event, he continued. And if you want it, help finding an apartment and a job afterward. The woman stared at him like she was trying to decide whether he was insane. You're offering all that for one evening? Yes. She glanced down at her worn shoes. Then back at him. Why me? She asked again quietly. Daniel answered honestly. Because you're the only person I've seen in this city who doesn't look like they're trying to impress someone. The woman was silent for a long moment. Rain continued falling softly around them. Finally she said, My name is Maya Torres. Daniel nodded. Maya. She looked directly into his eyes. And you're really serious about the apartment part? Yes. And the job help? Yes. Maya inhaled slowly. All right, she said. Daniel blinked. All right. I'll do it. Daniel smiled for the first time in days. Across the street, Sophie nearly choked on her coffee. Maya stood up, brushing off her jeans. So when is this wedding? Daniel checked the invitation. Tomorrow. Her eyes widened. You're kidding. No. Maya laughed again. Well then, she said, we better get started. Daniel stared at Maya for a moment after she agreed, almost as if he expected her to suddenly change her mind. You're serious? He asked. Maya tilted her head. You're the one offering $10,000 and a makeover. I should be the one asking if you're serious. Daniel exhaled slowly. Fair point. Across the street, Sophie hurried toward them, her heels clicking rapidly against the pavement. She stopped a few feet away and looked Maya up and down. Daniel spoke before she could. Sophie, this is Maya. Sophie blinked. You mean, the Maya? Daniel nodded. The silence that followed was so thick Maya couldn't help smiling. So, Maya said, folding her arms casually, I'm guessing you're the skeptical friend. Sophie recovered quickly. I'm the friend who makes sure Daniel doesn't accidentally ruin his life, she replied. Maya laughed softly. Well, today might be an adventure then. Sophie looked at Daniel. You actually asked her? Yes. And she said yes? Yes. Sophie stared at Maya again, studying her carefully. Finally she sighed. Well, if we're doing this, we're doing it properly. Maya raised an eyebrow. What does that mean? Sophie pulled out her phone. It means, she said, we have about 20 hours to turn you into the most unforgettable woman at that wedding. Maya blinked. 20 hours? Less actually, Sophie corrected. Daniel watched Maya carefully. Are you sure you're okay with all of this? Maya shrugged. I've slept under bridges and eaten crackers for dinner, she said. I think I can survive a fancy party. Sophie smiled. Good answer. She turned to Daniel. Take her upstairs. Daniel nodded. Maya grabbed her backpack. Wait, she said. You're serious about bringing me into that building? Daniel gestured toward the towering glass structure behind him. That building is mine. Maya smirked. Guess I'm upgrading neighborhoods today. The three of them walked toward the entrance. The doorman opened the door automatically for Daniel. Then he noticed Maya. His expression froze for a split second. Daniel noticed. She's with me, Daniel said calmly. The doorman immediately stepped aside. Of course, Mr. Mercer. Maya whispered as they walked inside. I think that guy almost had a heart attack. Daniel chuckled quietly. Inside the lobby, several employees glanced up. Maya felt dozens of curious eyes following her worn jeans and scuffed shoes. She suddenly felt very aware of how out of place she looked. Sophie noticed her hesitation. "Don't worry," she said quietly. "Tomorrow night every one of these people will wish they looked like you." Maya raised an eyebrow. "That sounds like a bold promise." Sophie grinned. "I don't make promises I can't keep." They stepped into a private elevator. As the doors closed, Maya leaned back against the wall. "This is insane," she muttered. Daniel smiled faintly. "You can still back out." Maya shook her head. "No way." The elevator stopped at the top floor. The doors opened to Daniel's penthouse suite. Maya stepped out and froze. The room was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the entire city skyline glowing under the rain. Elegant furniture filled the space. Soft lighting reflected off marble floors. Maya turned slowly. "You live here?" Daniel nodded. "Most of the time." She laughed quietly. "Okay. I officially feel underdressed." Sophie clapped her hands. "Good. Because that's about to change." She made a quick phone call. "Send everyone up," she said. Maya frowned. "Everyone?" 10 minutes later, the elevator doors opened again. 3 stylists walked in carrying bags. Behind them came a makeup artist, a hairstylist, and 2 assistants rolling racks of dresses. Maya's eyes widened. "Whoa." Sophie smiled proudly. "Welcome to Phase 1. One stylist approached Maya gently. "Hi, I'm Lena." Another waved. "I'm Marcus." The makeup artist grinned. "And I'm Zoe. We're here to make you dangerous." Maya burst out laughing. "Dangerous?" Sophie crossed her arms. "Oh yes," she said. "Olivia Hartwell will never see it coming." Daniel watched as the team led Maya toward a large chair near the window. She glanced back at him nervously. "You're not going to let them turn me into someone unrecognizable, right?" Daniel shook his head. "Just let them work." For the next 2 hours the penthouse transformed into a whirlwind of activity. Hair dryers buzzed. Fabric rustled. People moved quickly from one task to another. Maya sat patiently as Marcus studied her hair. "You have amazing bone structure," he said. She snorted. "Pretty sure that's the first time anyone said that to me." Zoe began applying makeup carefully. "You'll hear it more often after tonight." Daniel stood nearby watching. At first Maya looked uncomfortable. But gradually something changed. Her posture straightened. Her confidence grew. Finally Lena stepped forward holding a dress. Deep sapphire blue. Elegant but powerful. "Try this," Lena said. Maya disappeared behind a screen. A minute later she stepped out. Daniel blinked. The woman standing before him barely resembled the one sitting on the sidewalk earlier that day. Her hair fell in soft waves. The dress fit her perfectly. But the most striking difference was her expression. She looked confident. Sophie whistled. "Okay," she said. "Now we're getting somewhere." Maya turned slowly. "How do I look?" Daniel answered honestly. "You look incredible." Maya smiled slightly. Then Lena placed a pair of heels on the floor. "Time for the real challenge," she said. Maya stared at them. "You're joking." "Nope." Maya slipped them on carefully. She stood. And immediately wobbled. Daniel reached out instinctively to steady her. Maya laughed. "Okay, this might be harder than I thought." Sophie grabbed a glass of wine. "This is going to be entertaining." For the next hour Daniel helped Maya practice walking. Slow steps across the marble floor. Again and again. She stumbled several times. At one point she nearly crashed into the couch. "Don't laugh," Maya warned Sophie. "I'm trying not to," Sophie said, wiping tears from her eyes. Eventually Maya managed a smooth stride. Daniel nodded approvingly. "Much better." Maya placed her hands on her hips. "If I break my ankle tomorrow I'm sending you the hospital bill." "Deal?" Daniel said. Sophie suddenly clapped her hands again. "All right," she said. "Time for rehearsal." Maya groaned. "There's more?" "Yes," Sophie replied. "If people ask how you met, you can't just stare at them." Maya sighed. "Fair." Sophie pointed at Daniel. "Start." Daniel thought for a moment. "We met at an art gallery." Maya blinked. "Art gallery?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because you're an artist." Maya laughed. "I can barely draw stick figures." Sophie waved her hand. "You're a conceptual artist." "Which means?" Maya asked. "It means no one understands what you do but they're too afraid to admit it," Sophie said. Maya burst out laughing again. "Okay, I like this plan." Daniel smiled. So what kind of art do you make? Maya thought for a moment. Recycled sculpture, she said. Perfect, Sophie said immediately. Made from discarded materials? Maya added dramatically. Daniel nodded. See? You're already convincing. They spent the next hour practicing conversations. Sophie played the role of curious guest. So Maya, she said, pretending to sip champagne, how did you and Daniel meet? Maya straightened proudly. At a gallery opening downtown. And what do you do? I create sculptural pieces from recycled materials, Maya said confidently. Sophie nodded approvingly. Very believable. Daniel watched Maya carefully. She was getting better. Much better. Eventually Sophie checked the time. Okay, she said. Enough rehearsal. Maya collapsed onto the couch. My brain hurts. Daniel sat beside her. You did great. She glanced at him. You're still sure about this? Daniel didn't hesitate. Yes. Maya studied his expression. You really loved her, didn't you? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Yeah, he admitted. Maya nodded slowly. Then tomorrow we make sure she regrets it. Daniel smiled faintly. Sophie raised her glass. To tomorrow night. Maya lifted her water bottle. To chaos. Daniel chuckled. But none of them realized that tomorrow night would turn into something none of them expected. And the woman sitting quietly on Daniel Mercer's couch would soon become the most talked about guest at a billionaire wedding. Maya woke up slowly the next morning, confused for a moment about where she was. The bed beneath her felt impossibly soft. The room was quiet, warm, and smelled faintly of fresh linen. Then she remembered. The wedding. She sat up quickly. 4 years she had woken up to cold sidewalks, loud traffic, or strangers stepping around her cardboard sleeping spot. Waking up inside a penthouse suite felt surreal. A knock sounded on the door. Come in, Maya called. Sophie stepped inside carrying 2 cups of coffee. Morning, superstar. Maya groaned and rubbed her face. Please tell me last night wasn't a dream. Sophie handed her the coffee. Sorry? It's very real. Maya took a long sip. Okay, then today is the crazy wedding. Sophie sat on the edge of the bed. How are you feeling? Maya thought about it. Nervous, she admitted. Excited. Terrified. A little hungry. Sophie laughed. That last one we can fix. A few minutes later they joined Daniel in the kitchen area of the penthouse. He was standing by the window staring out at the city. Maya noticed something different about him. He looked tense. You okay? She asked. Daniel turned. He forced a small smile. Yeah. Sophie raised an eyebrow. That sounded convincing. Daniel sighed. It's just strange, he admitted. 6 months ago I thought today would be my wedding. Silence settled over the room. Maya stepped closer. Well, she said gently, today you get to crash hers instead. Daniel laughed quietly. That's one way to look at it. Sophie clapped her hands. All right, enough sad energy. Today is about confidence. She pointed at Maya. You are walking into that ballroom like you own the place. Maya smirked. I'll try not to trip first. The afternoon moved quickly. By early evening the penthouse once again filled with stylists and makeup artists. Marcus carefully adjusted Maya's hair. You nervous? He asked. A little, Maya admitted. Zoe applied the final touches to her makeup. Don't be, Zoe said. When you walk in there tonight, people are going to forget who the bride is. Maya laughed. Let's not go that far. But when she finally stood up and looked in the mirror, she froze. The woman staring back looked powerful. Elegant. Confident. The sapphire dress hugged her perfectly. Her hair fell softly around her shoulders. Even Maya barely recognized herself. Behind her, Sophie smiled. Now that, she said, is the woman who's going to ruin Olivia Hartwell's evening. Maya turned slowly. Wow, she whispered. Daniel stepped into the room. For a moment he didn't speak. He simply stared. Maya noticed. Well? She asked nervously. Daniel shook his head slightly. You look incredible. Maya smiled. Good. Because those heels still feel like death traps. Sophie checked her watch. It's time. Daniel grabbed his car keys. Let's go. The ride to the wedding venue was quiet at first. The car glided through the glowing city streets. Maya stared out the window watching the lights blur past. Finally she looked at Daniel. So, how big is this wedding? Daniel sighed. Big. How big? 500 guests. Maya choked slightly. You're kidding. No. 500 rich people? Yes. Maya leaned back dramatically. Oh wow. This is going to be fun. Sophie laughed from the front seat. Just remember what we practiced. Maya nodded. Confident artist who makes sculptures from trash. Recycled materials, Sophie corrected. Right. The car eventually turned onto a long driveway lined with glowing lights. At the end stood a massive luxury hotel ballroom. Valets rushed around. Dozens of luxury cars lined the entrance. Maya's eyes widened. Okay, she said slowly. That's a lot of fancy people. Daniel checked his watch. Perfect timing. Sophie looked confused. What do you mean? Daniel smiled slightly. We're late. Maya grinned. Oh, dramatic entrance? Exactly. The car stopped. A valet opened the door. Daniel stepped out first. Then he turned and offered his hand to Maya. For a split second she hesitated. This was it. Then she placed her hand in his. They stepped onto the red carpet together. Immediately cameras flashed. Several guests nearby turned to stare. Maya felt her heart pounding. Just breathe, Daniel whispered. They walked toward the entrance. Inside the ballroom, soft music filled the air. The ceremony had already ended. Guests were mingling with champagne glasses in hand. When Daniel and Maya stepped through the doors, conversation slowly faded. Heads turned. Whispers spread across the room. Is that Daniel Mercer? Who's the woman with him? She's gorgeous. Maya kept walking, pretending not to hear anything. Across the ballroom, Olivia Hartwell stood beside her new husband Christopher Vaughn. She was laughing with a group of guests. Then she noticed Daniel. Her smile froze. Her eyes shifted to Maya. Shock flashed across her face. Maya leaned closer to Daniel. Is that her? Yes. Wow, Maya whispered. She definitely didn't expect this. Daniel's grip on her hand tightened slightly. Olivia excused herself from her group. Christopher looked confused but followed her gaze. His eyebrows lifted. Meanwhile, Maya and Daniel continued walking across the room. Every step felt like walking through a spotlight. Maya suddenly stumbled slightly on the marble floor. Her heel slipped. Daniel caught her instantly, pulling her gently back to balance. Their faces were inches apart. Careful, he whispered. Maya laughed softly. Almost ruined the entrance. But the moment had an unexpected effect. Several nearby guests smiled. The stumble looked natural. Almost romantic. By the time they reached the center of the ballroom, Olivia was already approaching them. Her expression was perfectly polite. But her eyes were icy. Daniel, she said sweetly. Daniel nodded. Olivia. She looked at Maya carefully. And who is this? Daniel spoke calmly. This is Maya. He paused slightly. My girlfriend. The word hung in the air like a firecracker. Olivia blinked once. Then forced a smile. Well, this is a surprise. Maya extended her hand confidently. It's nice to meet you. Olivia shook it briefly. Her grip was cold. Christopher stepped forward. Tall, confident, clearly used to attention. I'm Christopher, he said. Daniel nodded. Congratulations. Christopher smiled politely. Thank you. But his eyes kept drifting back to Maya. Daniel didn't mention he was seeing someone, Olivia said carefully. Daniel shrugged. It's new. Maya added smoothly, we met at a gallery opening. Sophie, standing a few steps away, nearly burst with pride. Olivia raised an eyebrow. You're an artist? Yes, Maya replied confidently. What kind? Recycled sculpture, Maya said. Christopher looked impressed. That's interesting. Olivia forced a small laugh. How unique. But something in her expression had changed. Jealousy. She had expected Daniel to show up alone. Broken. Instead he had arrived with a woman who was stealing attention. Olivia leaned slightly closer to Maya. And where did you study art? The question hung in the air. For a split second Maya hesitated. Then she smiled calmly. Life, she said. Christopher chuckled. I like that answer. Olivia's smile tightened. Well, she said stiffly, enjoy the reception. She turned and walked away quickly. Maya watched her go. Then she leaned toward Daniel. Okay, she whispered. That was fun. Daniel laughed quietly. Oh, we're just getting started. Across the ballroom, guests continued whispering and glancing toward them. No one knew it yet. But before the night ended, Maya Torres was about to become the most unforgettable person in that entire room. And Olivia Hartwell's perfect wedding was about to spiral into something she would never forget. Maya exhaled slowly once Olivia disappeared back into the crowd. Okay, she murmured. That woman definitely hates me. Daniel smirked. She hated me before you arrived. Fair, Maya said. A waiter approached with a tray of champagne. Maya hesitated before taking a glass. Relax, Daniel said quietly. You belong here tonight. Maya raised an eyebrow. Funny. 12 hours ago security probably would have escorted me out of this place. Daniel shrugged. 12 hours ago you weren't my girlfriend. She laughed. Right. Across the ballroom, Sophie watched everything unfold with a grin. Guests had already started whispering again. Who is she? Is that Daniel Mercer's new girlfriend? She's stunning. Maya noticed the attention. People are staring, she whispered. That's the point, Daniel replied. Suddenly a woman in an elegant silver dress approached them. Daniel Mercer, she said brightly. I didn't expect to see you tonight. Daniel smiled politely. Hello, Victoria. Victoria's eyes moved to Maya immediately. And who is this? Maya, Daniel said calmly. My girlfriend. Victoria blinked. Oh, well, hello. Maya smiled and shook her hand. Nice to meet you. Victoria looked curious. So how did you two meet? Maya didn't hesitate. At a gallery opening downtown. Victoria nodded slowly. And you're an artist? Yes. What kind? Mixed media sculpture, Maya said smoothly. I work mostly with recycled materials. Victoria looked impressed. That sounds fascinating. Thank you. Victoria leaned closer to Daniel. You always did have interesting taste. Daniel chuckled. I try. As Victoria walked away, Maya whispered, Okay, that one was easier. Daniel smiled. You're doing great. Maya glanced across the room. Your ex is still staring. Daniel followed her gaze. Olivia stood beside Christopher again, but her eyes kept drifting toward Maya. She thought I'd come alone, Daniel said quietly. Yeah, Maya replied. You definitely ruined her evening. Just then the band began playing louder music. The reception had officially started. Guests moved toward the dance floor. Maya watched people laughing, drinking, celebrating. This place is insane, she said. You should see the dessert table later, Daniel replied. Her eyes lit up. There's a dessert table? Daniel laughed. Stay focused. A voice suddenly interrupted. Well, well, well. They turned. Christopher Vaughn stood beside them. The billionaire groom looked relaxed but curious. Daniel, he said calmly. Mind if I steal a moment? Daniel shrugged. Sure. Christopher looked at Maya. Actually, I'd love to hear more about your art. Maya blinked. Oh. Christopher nodded. I collect modern pieces, especially unconventional artists. Daniel watched quietly. Maya smiled politely. Well, most of my work focuses on transformation. Christopher looked intrigued. How so? I take discarded objects, Maya explained, things people overlook, and turn them into something meaningful. Christopher nodded thoughtfully. That's actually brilliant. Across the room Olivia watched the conversation, clearly irritated. Maya noticed and whispered to Daniel, Your ex looks like she's about to explode. Daniel chuckled softly. Christopher laughed suddenly. You know, he said to Maya, I'd love to see your work sometime. Maya froze for a split second. Then she smiled calmly. I'd love to show you. Daniel almost choked on his champagne. Christopher grinned. Great. Let's talk after the honeymoon. Olivia suddenly appeared beside him. Christopher, she said tightly. The photographer needs us. Christopher nodded. Excuse me. As they walked away, Maya exhaled dramatically. Wow. Daniel laughed. You handled that perfectly. Barely, Maya admitted. Sophie appeared beside them. I leave you two alone for 10 minutes and you're already charming billionaires. Maya shrugged. Apparently my fake art career is taking off. Sophie laughed. Just then the music changed. A fast, upbeat rhythm filled the ballroom. Guests started clapping. The dance floor grew crowded. Maya watched the dancers for a moment. Then her eyes widened. No way, she whispered. Daniel looked confused. What? That song. What about it? Maya suddenly smiled. Oh my God. Before Daniel could react, she handed him her champagne glass. Hold this. Then she stepped onto the dance floor. Daniel blinked. What is she doing? Sophie looked amused. I have no idea. Maya walked confidently into the center of the floor. The music grew louder. A few dancers moved aside. Then Maya started dancing. Not slow ballroom dancing. Not awkward swaying. She launched into a fast, precise routine. Sharp movements. Quick spins. Perfect rhythm. It was a full K-pop style choreography. Guests froze. Phones began appearing instantly. What is happening? Sophie whispered. Daniel stared in disbelief. Maya moved across the floor with incredible energy. Every step matched the music perfectly. Guests began cheering. Someone shouted, "Go girl!" Even the band looked stunned. Christopher watched with wide eyes. That's impressive, he muttered. But Olivia's face had turned bright red. The crowd began clapping along. Maya finished with a dramatic spin and a final pose. For a second the room was silent. Then the entire ballroom erupted in applause. People whistled, cheered. Several guests rushed closer, still filming. Daniel walked toward her slowly. You never mentioned you could dance like that, he said. Maya laughed, slightly out of breath. Used to do it years ago. That was incredible. A young woman approached excitedly. That was amazing, she said. Can I post that video? Maya shrugged. Sure. Within seconds several clips were already being uploaded. Sophie checked her phone. Oh wow. What? Daniel asked. It's already getting views. Maya blinked. Seriously? Sophie nodded. People love unexpected moments. Across the ballroom Olivia stood frozen. Her perfect reception had just been hijacked by the homeless woman she had tried to ignore. Christopher leaned toward her. You didn't mention Daniel's girlfriend was famous. She's not, Olivia snapped. But she could feel it. The attention. The whispers. The laughter. The spotlight was no longer on her wedding. It was on Maya. Meanwhile Maya returned to Daniel's side, still smiling. Okay, she said. That was fun. Daniel looked at her in disbelief. You just stole the entire wedding. Maya shrugged playfully. Oops. Sophie leaned closer. Guys, the video just hit 50,000 views. Maya's eyes widened. Already? Daniel smiled. Looks like tonight just got even more interesting. But none of them realized the biggest confrontation of the night was still coming. And within the next hour, the truth about Maya would explode in front of everyone. Maya was still catching her breath when another group of guests approached her. Excuse me, a woman said excitedly. That dance was incredible. Maya laughed softly. Thanks. Do you teach classes? No, Maya replied. Are you a professional dancer? Definitely not. Phones continued flashing as people replayed the clips they had recorded. Sophie checked her screen again. You're trending, she whispered. Maya blinked. What? Look. She turned the phone toward Maya. A short video of her dance had already gathered hundreds of thousands of views. The caption read, Mystery woman steals the spotlight at billionaire wedding. Maya covered her mouth. You're kidding. Daniel smiled. Looks like you broke the internet. Across the ballroom Olivia watched the attention with growing anger. Her wedding reception had turned into a show about someone else. And she couldn't stand it. Christopher leaned toward her. Relax, he murmured. It's just a dance. But Olivia's eyes were fixed on Maya. That woman just humiliated me at my own wedding, she muttered. Christopher sighed. Then ignore it. But Olivia was already walking toward them. Daniel saw her approaching. Here we go, he whispered. Maya straightened slightly. Olivia stopped in front of them, her smile tight. That was quite a performance, she said. Thank you, Maya replied politely. Olivia looked at Daniel. You certainly move on quickly. Daniel shrugged. Life goes on. Olivia's eyes shifted back to Maya. So Maya, she said sweetly, you said you're an artist. Yes. I was just curious, Olivia continued. Which galleries represent you? The question hung in the air. Several nearby guests turned their attention toward them. Maya stayed calm. I'm currently working independently. Olivia tilted her head. How interesting. Her smile widened slightly. Because I did a little searching. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? Olivia folded her arms. I mean, she said clearly, there's absolutely no record of you anywhere. Whispers began spreading again. Olivia stepped closer. No exhibitions. No shows. No collectors. She looked Maya up and down slowly. So tell me, she said loudly enough for others to hear. Where exactly did Daniel find you? Daniel's voice hardened. Olivia. But she ignored him. You see, Olivia continued, I did recognize you. Maya's heart skipped. You've been sitting outside Daniel's building for months. The whispers grew louder. Olivia's voice sharpened. You're homeless. The word echoed across the nearby tables. Several guests gasped. Christopher looked uncomfortable. Daniel stepped forward. That's enough. But Maya gently touched his arm. It's okay. She stepped forward to face Olivia directly. Yes, Maya said calmly. I am. The crowd fell silent. Olivia blinked, clearly expecting denial. You admit it? Maya nodded. I lived on the street for almost a year. Some guests looked shocked. Others looked sympathetic. Maya continued quietly. Life doesn't always go the way people expect. Olivia scoffed. So Daniel paid you to pretend to be his girlfriend. Daniel opened his mouth. But Maya spoke first. At first, yes. Gasp spread again. Daniel looked at her. Maya. But she kept going. He asked me to come tonight because he didn't want to be humiliated again. Her voice grew stronger. And honestly, I didn't expect much from tonight. She glanced around the ballroom. But I did see something interesting. Olivia folded her arms. Oh. Maya looked directly at her. I saw a woman who left someone who loved her, just because she found someone richer. Several guests murmured. Olivia's face darkened. And I saw a man who was hurt but still kind enough to help someone like me. Maya's eyes softened slightly as she glanced at Daniel. He didn't treat me like I was worthless. The room remained silent. Then Maya looked back at Olivia. You tried to embarrass me, she said calmly. But I'm not ashamed of where I came from. A few guests began clapping quietly. Olivia's jaw tightened. You think this makes you noble? No, Maya replied softly. I just think honesty matters more than pretending to be perfect. Christopher suddenly cleared his throat. Olivia, maybe we should drop this. But Olivia was furious now. This is ridiculous, she snapped. You're defending a homeless stranger over your own. Daniel interrupted. She's not a stranger. Everyone turned to him. Daniel stepped closer to Maya. She's someone who showed more courage tonight than anyone else in this room. Olivia stared at him. You're unbelievable. Daniel shrugged. Maybe. Then he did something no one expected. He turned to Maya. And kissed her. The crowd gasped again. Maya froze for a second. Then slowly kissed him back. When they finally pulled apart, the room erupted with whispers. Daniel smiled slightly. Well, he said quietly to Maya, that definitely wasn't part of the rehearsal. Maya laughed nervously. No, it wasn't. Olivia looked like she might explode. Enjoy your little performance, she snapped before storming away. Christopher watched her leave inside. Then he turned to Daniel. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I think you won tonight. He walked away. The tension slowly faded as guests returned to their conversations. But many of them kept glancing toward Maya with admiration. Sophie hurried over. Oh my God, she whispered. You two just destroyed that wedding. Maya shook her head in disbelief. I cannot believe that just happened. Daniel looked at her. Are you okay? Maya nodded slowly. Yeah. Then she smiled. Actually, I think I am. Later that night they stepped outside onto the quiet terrace. The city lights shimmered in the distance. For a moment neither of them spoke. Finally Maya broke the silence. So, that kiss. Daniel chuckled. Too much. She thought for a moment. No. Daniel looked at her seriously. I meant what I said inside. Maya studied him. What part? That you're not pretending anymore. Her heart skipped slightly. Daniel continued quietly. This whole thing started as revenge. He shook his head. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being fake. Maya smiled softly. You're falling for the homeless girl? Daniel shrugged. Maybe I already did. She laughed. Well, that's definitely a plot twist. Daniel looked out at the city. You know the offer still stands. What offer? The apartment. The job help. Maya nodded slowly. I'd like that. 6 months later the video of Maya's dance had reached over 20 million views. Her story spread across social media. A small design company offered her a job creating digital artwork. She moved into a modest apartment downtown. And Daniel Mercer visited almost every day. Meanwhile, Olivia Hartwell's marriage to Christopher Vaughn lasted exactly 3 months before the divorce headlines appeared. Money, it turned out, couldn't fix everything. One evening Maya and Daniel sat together on her apartment balcony watching the sunset. Do you ever think about how crazy that night was? Maya asked. Daniel laughed. Every day. She leaned against his shoulder. You know something? What? You taking a chance on a homeless woman might have been the best decision you ever made. Daniel smiled. Best crazy decision. Maya looked toward the camera as if speaking to the viewer. And if you enjoyed this story, she said with a playful grin, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments. Daniel finished the sentence. Would you have taken the same risk? Maya laughed softly. Because sometimes the most unexpected choices. Daniel squeezed her hand. Lead to the most incredible endings.